So this is what you do the first time we're back together as a family. Vampire Book Club.
Warning, this podcast, Vampire Book Club, will contain spoilers from the Vampire Diaries, the originals, and Legacies. Hey everyone, my name is Michaela. Welcome to my podcast. Yet again, there will be spoilers from any of the Vampire Diaries universe content. So in today's episode, I'm going to be ranking the top 10 witches in the Vampire Diaries universe. Before I get started, don't forget to check out my link in the description. Number 10, Malachi Parker, or Kai Parker for short. He is born a twin into the Gemini Coven. He is a siphon where his twin sister is Glenda the Good Witch, he says. She has power like most witches from nature or ancestors or both. He, his whole life, was isolated and alienated because he did not possess any magic of his own. Growing up, that must be a really difficult thing to deal with. They keep seeing him as he gets older, show more signs of anger, and are afraid to let him merge with Joe. So they keep trying for more children to have more twins so they can be the leader. Because in this coven, twins of the leader merge together at age 22. And they become the next leader of the Gemini Coven. So on May 9th, 1994, he starts slaughtering his whole family. The twins are like 5-6 years old. He kills a lot of their siblings. He shows no remorse for this. He doesn't want them to become the next leader. He wants to become the next leader. They are both non-siphon witches. The two 6-year-old twins live in Luke Parker. Josette shields the three of them from Kai. So the next day is a solar eclipse, May 10th, 1994, and they use that to kind of trick Kai into trapping him in a prison world with no magic, where he cannot die, and he is stuck there for eternity. However, Bonnie in season 5, when she's done being the anchor and the other side is disappearing, Bonnie's grandmother sends her to this prison world, and she happened to be holding Damon's hand, so he came with her. Bonnie does transfer magic into her teddy bear and gives it and uses that in the Ascendant and her blood to get Damon back to reality, and he puts it together when he figures out that Bonnie put her magic into something safe, that his sister did the same thing before they tricked her so he couldn't siphon her magic during the fake merge. So he drove Bonnie to her house, made her a deal because it was Thanksgiving, even though it was a terrible trip for her. He said he would give her the car. He doesn't end up following through. He ends up finding her magic in where she has it hidden and basically drains Bonnie of her blood. Well, at least takes enough for the spell that he needs. He gets the Ascendant, finds his way back to Mystic Falls while Bonnie is still stuck there. She also eventually finds her way out. So while he is out, he ends up siphoning a spell from the Travelers. The Travelers put in an entire spell in Mystic Falls, banning anything magical to exist there. So whenever you step over the borders, magic erase. This included compulsions, all kinds of things. Everything would just be gone, other than the spell itself. Make it make sense. However, Kai, being the type of witch that he is, he was able to siphon a town's worth of magic and was able to do a lot of damage. He ended up almost killing his sister, Elena, and a lot of other people. So he ends up doing the merge with his twin brother, who, because of Kai's prison world, is basically the same age as him and a twin from his line. He knows deep down this isn't going to work, and it ends up not really working well. There ends up being issues. Eventually, Joe gets pregnant with twins, his twin sister, and he is nervous that they are going to take over his leadership of the coven because he did win the merge with his brother. Since the merge with his brother, he does start to show compassion. However, Bonnie does not give him the benefit of the doubt because Bonnie was tortured by him in the prison world and went through a lot of traumatic things, and I don't blame her at all, honestly. So when she was leaving her prison world, she ended up seeing an aurora borealis, or she had a videotape with her from the 90s. She ended up seeing a person, and it ended up being Damon Salvatore and Stefan Salvatore's mother. So they decided to go back there because Stefan has his humanity off, and I think that they can use Lily to help with this. There are other vampires with her, and that's all you know. Turns out, like, they leave Kai there. Those vampires are actually the same type of witches from the same coven, the Gemini Coven, who are also looked at as an abomination like Kai was and like Klaus was by Michael. So he kind of teams up with Lily and the heretics to get out of this prison world. He ends up taking Qetsiyah's blood from the immortality thing, and they're all able to get free. So Jo is pregnant with twins, and her and Alark are getting married. This is so sad. He ends up putting Elena in a sleeping spell. That's not the sad part. That I wish that she didn't end up in that sleeping spell connected to Bonnie's life. He has magic to do all kinds of things. He ends up killing himself to become the heretic, and that's when his entire coven dies because they no longer have a leader. However, the twins are being magically transferred to an indestructible body, and we see him come back from the 1995 prison world, the 1903 prison world, and even another prison world after this in Legacies. He is able to do a lot of damage with his magic. However, Tyler uses Liv as a sacrifice to turn into a werewolf to be able to kill Kai. Unfortunately, Kai just siphons the werewolf bite out of himself. While he's tormenting everybody, Damon decides to chop his head off. He then goes to hell, and he is able to be free from hell with Catherine Pierce. They buddy team up and get to torture all the people in their little crew. That is not the end of Kai Parker, and throughout this whole time, he still has magic. He goes to siphon Stefan, and surprise, surprise, Stefan's human. There was nothing to siphon. He's like, you must be nuts. He also goes to kill the twins yet again so they cannot be the leader of his coven and just to get revenge. And Alark ends up fighting him. But again, in Legacies, he comes back and does a lot of damage there. He ends up escaping through Malavor's thing and everybody forgets him. He poses as somebody else and he kind of gets in and really does some stuff. And it ends up being Alark that gets the final kill. And I was pretty happy with that. But him and Josie have some bonding session where Josie kind of believes him. But yeah, in the end, he was fooling all of them. And it was Alark who was able to get rid of him. Number 9 is going to be Cleo. Cleo is an amazing character in Legacies. She is more than just a witch. She is a witch and a muse all at the same time. She is the 7th daughter of the 7th daughter. She, as a small child, displays signs of doing magic. She is willing to sacrifice herself for her entire village. This takes place like before Silas, I believe, honestly. Malavor is coming to take her grandmother. She does not let Malavor. She sacrifices herself because she knows that the people of her village can benefit from her. She is the only witch that we see that is able to physically create things and not just from Malavor mud. I think sometimes it is Malavor mud, but she is able to create real living creatures from her own inspirations, and she is able to give other people inspiration. She is a muse. She was imprisoned by Malavor to basically create a way for him to stay alive. He is a creation of witch, werewolf, and vampires. And that is why Hope was born. And Hope is really the only thing that can defeat him because it needs to be something of witch, werewolf, and vampire in one. However, Cleo is trapped in an artifact for centuries until Hope sets her free because she is the only person that can set Cleo free because that's the way they did it. We see Cleo be able to kind of take down Hope, or at least have a really good fight against Hope. She doesn't share with others that Hope could be killed by a weapon that exists, the red oak tree. She creates a ferryman. She also has the best chances of fighting against the gods because she is closely working with the gods, as she is also a fury because that is something that muses apparently can do. She is able to change realities to a certain extent. She is also able to use inspiration to fuel others. Number 8, Freya Mikaelson. I really wanted to put Freya a little bit higher on this list. However, I just didn't feel like it was accurate. Freya is a firstborn Mikaelson. We see her easily resurrect Finn when she first makes an appearance. We also see her break out of a cottage that is meant to trap witches and other magical creatures. She helps Rebecca break free as well. In the cottage, when Rebecca is there, Rebecca can sense that there's like this great magic in another room, and it happens to be her long-lost sister who was traded. She works with the Mikaelsons in order to defeat Dahlia. So she uses a pendant that helps bring back people to life. She has brought back Elijah. She has also brought back Finn. Nobody else was able to find baby Hope, who was hidden with Rebecca, but Freya was easily able to figure that out. When helping Finn, she did not realize that Finn's intentions were evil and malicious towards the baby. She just thought she was helping her brother. That's not the Finn she remembers. She magically links her siblings and herself to one of her other siblings to be in a Chambre de Chat for 5 to 7 years, which I honestly feel like is a very long time. Most of them end pretty quickly and just like teach a lesson. She was able to use that and a sleeping spell that Dahlia used on her. I really like when they bring her in, however, though, because you see magic being used differently than you typically do through ancestors. And even Davina, with the Harvest Girl ritual in her, has like a lot of strength, but you see magic being done differently than you do in the Vampire Diaries, and I thought that was pretty cool. She has like ancient magic versus ancestor magic. Maybe the ancient people didn't have as many ancestors, I don't know. Or maybe it's just two different ways of practicing magic. Freya Mikaelson is one of the only witches that I think you ever see being able to break out of the magic cuffs all on her own. Rather, the anti-magic cuffs that keep you from practicing magic, somehow she gets free. She is able to take down some of the oldest vampires. She is able to use resurrection magic. She is the only witch to ever create a cure for the vampire bite that Lucian's and Marcel's serum causes. She also uses a mask to help aid Stefan Salvatore. When Reina Cruz is after him, it covers the mark and stops Reina Cruz from really finding him or being able to track him. She is able to find cures to a poison dart that cures herself. She is also able to make a cure for Rebecca's hex and her brother's werewolf werewolf bites. Number 7, Esther Mikaelson, the original witch. We see her create vampirism. She was able to create a necklace to weaken her son, Klaus. She made sleeping potions for Michael with a special root that she got from her werewolf lover. She must have studied magic in some way because she knew the doppelganger was Qetsiyah in order to use doppelganger magic to both bind Klaus's werewolf side and to make vampires. She was also the witch that created daylight rings. She is also able to use resurrection magic. She is able to put people into other bodies or souls into other bodies, including her own and her children. I am pretty sure that she actually creates the red door with magic before it becomes like a mental scape in Elijah's head. Not positive on that one. But either way, she was able to mess with his memory in a way where he never remembered all of the things that he had done. When she is calling back one of her children, Cole, who is in Caleb's body at the time, she is able to write a message on his arm and it burns into his flesh. She does many linking spells, a privacy spell with Sage. And she is definitely a very well-known, notorious witch. Lots of witches know the Mikaelsons and know her story. They also know about her magical amulet. They know about her grimoire. A lot of them want to take her book. They try many times or ask many times. She also makes the white oak stake indestructible using Alaric's ring, which is pretty cool. However, a lot of the time she still needs to channel the Bennett line, which is why I put her at 7. But she still is a pretty legendary witch. Number 6, Qetsiyah, or Tessa. She is from the Bennett bloodline. She is over 2,000 years old. She's a Gemini and loves walks on the beach. No, so I'm just kidding. She is a scorned lover who is looking for revenge on the 2 people who hurt her the most. She is the first witch that we know of who actually creates an immortality spell. This is 1,000 years before Esther does, which actually is the reason that we have the doppelgangers in this world, because of her spell. Not only is she the creator of the immortality spell, she is also the creator of the cure for vampirism. Now, this cure is basically so Silas and Amara can stop being immortal because she has created the other side. She is trying to keep Amara away from Silas, which is kind of confusing because while she created the other side, she also created an anchor, and the anchor ended up being Amara. So the anchor has a foothold on both sides, so that kind of confuses me. However, she's a badass witch. She created all of this. Honestly, she does one of my favorite spells, and it is mostly because of my love of the 1998 show Charmed. They use the Qetsiyah and the 3 doppelgangers. The Qetsiyah is a very powerful women in unity symbol, and I love it. She combines all of them and uses their magic in order to make Bonnie the anchor and bring her back to life before the other side disappears. So Qetsiyah is pretty powerful. She was also able to find Stefan while he was drowning in the quarry, and she was able to kind of seal him, fry his brain, and take away most of his memories. And then she was able to send the female doppelgangers, Catherine and Elena, that we know of, dreams that Stefan was missing and needed help to lure them into a trap. Her trust issues and insecurities are kind of what scare me the most about her, but she's pretty powerful. Number 5, another Bennett witch. My favorite Bennett witch, Bonnie Bennett. We see her transformation from a newbie, just found out I'm a witch, I think I'm just psychic, and the depths that she transforms to and the growth that she shows us throughout the series is amazing. She has dabbled with resurrection magic. She has been all kinds of different creatures. In the beginning, she's starting off with spells like Incendia, setting things on fire, and in the end, she is sending hell's fire back to hell, which is pretty impressive. She's channeling 100 of her dead ancestors. However, that really is irrelevant. She's a badass witch. We see Bonnie using ancestral magic. We see her using expression. She is a very strong witch. She takes down all kinds of creatures. We see her lose her magic time and time again. However, she is always able to get the connection back. She figured out how to make a daylight ring on her own. If Elijah had followed through with his plan, she would have been able to assist in killing Klaus. However, Elijah let them down, obviously. Thank goodness, because we wouldn't have the originals or any of the great moments that we had after this. This poor girl sacrifices herself over and over and over again. She loses her mother. Her mother becomes a vampire. She loses her father. She watches her father die as she's pretending to be alive with Jeremy's help. She loses her grandmother in season 1 while trying to help Damon get Catherine out of the tomb, and Elena runs in and Stefan follows her. So while trying to save Stefan is when Bonnie loses her grandmother. It's very sad. I always feel so bad for her. She cares about everybody's feelings, and nobody really seems to care about her very much. I love the feathers, how she's really the only witch that plays with feathers and does like fun magical things. I think it's because we're seeing her learn. Like I said, she does send hell's fire back to hell. She also creates her own world, her own portal to another world out of her grief, which is pretty impressive because the only other person to do that is the devil himself. I personally love when she finally gets a moment to kind of her Elena, no humanity Helena. With or without her humanity, she deserved it long before this. And I know in the originals they put an emphasis on firstborn witches, which since Bonnie is an only child, she would also be a firstborn witch, making her powerful. Her line does a lot of spell work, including creating prison worlds. She was able to fight Kai in the prison world and able to break free in the prison world. She's able to transfer her magic into other objects. She is able to trap originals and even Catherine in rooms and houses, which is a boundary spell, but just the way that it's in somebody's house in one room is pretty crazy to me. It's even crazier when you realize that poor Bonnie is the only character that doesn't have her own bedroom. Maybe the two things are related. I don't know. She really just deserved so much more. She was also the anchor to the other side. She had a foothold on both sides, which meant she got to be a part of the living world. However, she was also, unfortunately, had to endure the pain of every supernatural being that passed away. They had to pass through her, and she felt the pain of each and every one of their deaths. She also becomes a vampire hunter and takes the place of Reina Cruz. I will never forgive the writers for not only not giving her her happy ending with Enzo, but to make her the maid of honor in the wedding of the man who took Enzo's life. However, I am glad that she is the one who sends Hellfire back to hell and takes Stefan along with him, because in that moment, he deserved it. That wasn't even the first time he killed Enzo. At this point, she had stopped having magic, or she thought so, because she was taking anti-magic pills. However, she was still able to see Enzo, and he convinces her that she does have her magic and helps her save herself and the twins, the Saltzman twins, on the wedding day, prompting her to save Mystic Falls. Number 4 is going to be Harvest Davina. Although Davina is kind of strong on her own, nothing compares to the magic when she has all 4 of the Harvest Girls' magic running through her, well, hers and the other 3. Even though she was also regent for a very short time, this is when she is definitely the most powerful. She is able to sense when anybody in New Orleans or any of her coven is doing magic. She is able to wipe an original's memory. Rebecca describes Davina as being the most powerful thing she has ever felt. And Rebecca has been around for 1,000 years and has felt all kinds of torment. Not only can she sense when other witches are doing magic, she is able to fight from a tower way far away and help Marcel stay alive. She channels messages from the other side. She starts drawing pictures, and it ends up being Celeste Dubois. She is one of the couple of witches that we see boil blood. She is determined to find a delinking spell or a desiring spell from Klaus's line, and she eventually does do that with the help of the Strix Coven. However, this is separate from her being a harvest witch. We see her kind of lift enemies and hold them there while snapping their necks and gently bringing them down, which is kind of cooler than just letting them drop. We also see her take on Marcel, Klaus, and Elijah at the same time. She makes Elijah choke on his own blood. She has Klaus kind of like turn into a wolf. Let's see your true face, you monster. And she hurts Marcel because she is hurt. We also see her have a peaceful side with magic where she uses magic to play music. She gets a piece of Esther's spell book and is able to do an unlinking spell for Haley, who is pregnant with Hope and is linked to Sophie Devereaux. I think she is the only witch to ever decompel a human from a vampire's compulsion. She also decompels a vampire from a vampire's compulsion. Actually, he is a hybrid for both of them. She has too much power inside of her, however, and she starts creating storms from the different elements. And finally, she ends up dying, completing the harvest ritual. Number 3, Dahlia. She is technically not a Mikaelson witch. I don't know what her and Esther's maiden names were, but she is Esther's sister. She is a firstborn, and she also channels firstborns. She is able to create a fertility spell in order for her sister to become fertile and have children. However, she makes a deal with her sister saying that she wants her firstborn and all firstborns in the family. And while she takes Esther's firstborn, none of her other children are able to have firstborns because they become vampires or die. And although Freya becomes close, Freya decides she will never put a child of hers through what she has been through. She takes out entire villages. She creates a sleeping spell and a linking spell that link her and Freya together, keeping them both immortal and only alive for 1 year per century. When Hope is miraculously born, she is able to kind of sense her magic and comes for her. She also, I don't know if she wakes up because of this or if this is just when she was supposed to wake up. She also senses that she can't walk into St. James because she would be vulnerable in there, and she's correct. I don't know how she knows, but there is an anti-magic spell there, and her magic would be useless if she had entered. She puts Klaus into her mind to show Klaus her story. She is able to heal Josephine's hands, who has not been able to play the violin in years. So she heals Josephine and then sends Josephine with a message. Her neck is like bleeding, but she is still saying Dahlia's message for her. She uses kenning, which puts her into other people's bodies to be able to keep tabs on the baby. She starts putting dahlias everywhere, the flower, which is kind of cool. I love how they did that. We see her take down Michael and Klaus, the first time that we ever see Michael and Klaus work together, which was pretty cool for their daughters. She is using like a small fraction of her magic to fight them and takes them down pretty effortlessly, is able to defeat them. Well, not defeat them, but wasn't much of a challenge for her at all. And able to destroy the weapon that they had thought that they created, which was her homeland soil, Viking ash, and blood of the witch that she loved the most. And we thought it was Freya, however, it was Esther. So that weapon would not have worked anyways. And I'm pretty sure Dahlia knew that, but just wanted to mess with their minds, honestly. She has telekinesis, is able to wound them with her mind, well, the flick of her wrist, and magically rips hearts out without actually touching them. She creates storms that are brutal and lures out Haley and the baby. And then she teams up with her diabolical nephew, knowing that she needs both parents, or at least one parent, to provide real love for this child in order to be able to channel her, using the excuse that this is the best way to protect his daughter. So he goes along with it, and ultimately that is how she is taken down. But she is still number 3 on this list because she gives them a run for their money, for sure, and not a lot of people do that. Number 2, Hope Mikaelson, the Tribrid. Other than heretics, she is the only witch that when becomes a vampire is able to keep her magic. She is the only magical being that is born with vampire blood in their system that constantly regenerates as vampire blood and also has werewolf blood from birth. She is a firstborn Mikaelson witch, and come to find out, Haley's bloodline also comes from a line of witches, which I don't know why they don't ever mention. That would have made more sense than Esther's genes that were gone. But then again, we also don't see Haley being a witch, so not sure what happened here. Hope heals her mother from the inside of the womb, and not sure if that is a vampire thing or a magical, powerful witch thing. We also see her as a small baby, healing herself and sensing when there is danger around. She is in a car seat and literally stops a car before the house they were staying at explodes, and then restarts the car when it is safe to start driving again. She has an anti-magic bracelet, but even as a child, she kind of takes it off sometimes. She heals butterflies' wings. She is able to break a protection spell that is put around Marcel to save them both. I think Freya does that spell, and she has no problem breaking it. It was quite effortlessly. She creates her own cloaking spell for her mother, which actually was really an amazing spell, and nobody could get through it. The only thing is that she did not cloak her own brain from vampires, and they got into her head. She cloaked her mother as a hybrid, so when she became just a vampire, that is the only way they were able to find her, because it was no longer a hybrid that was being cloaked anymore. She telekinetically inflicts pain on lots of people, Klaus, Elijah, and others. She takes down dragons and all kinds of mythical creatures. She was quite literally allowed to be created because she is meant to destroy Malivore. He is a monster made from a witch, a werewolf, and a vampire, so there needed to be a being of all 3 to take him down. While at the Salvatore boarding school, she is able to create a spell to find potential students, sensing magic around the world and where they could go to find students for their school. We see her do invisibility spells and mimicking spells. We also see her when her emotions are heightened. We really see her magic come out. It's a little uncontrollable and it is unpredictable, but she is so powerful that that's how it comes out. She is also able to keep Lizzie alive when she dies in the merge, and is able to bring Dark Josie back to life. Well, back to being good Josie, letting her think that they had done the merge, but also keeping Lizzie alive so she didn't lose during the merge. And I don't know if this has anything to do with her witch side, but she is the only vampire that turns her humanity switch off without actually turning her humanity switch off. Her subconscious does this, and I don't know if it's because she has good and bad in her and it's fighting against each other, or if she's just that powerful. So before I get to the number one most powerful witch, I am going to include some honorable mentions, starting with Silas. Silas is able to manipulate lots of other people. He has very cool psychic abilities. He's able to kind of manipulate Klaus. He lets Klaus think that he is got a piece of the white oak stake in him. He is able to become all sorts of different people to get what he wants. He is one of the first two immortal beings that ever existed in the world. He inspires fear in children throughout the world to eat their veggies. He was feared by many witches over the years. I don't know, him just being a doppelganger of Stefan's was kind of weird, so I don't think it really gave me the full effect that it should have. I'm also going to mention Celeste Dubois. She is a powerful witch who, when killed by Klaus, still was able to jump bodies, similar to Esther. She also was able to hijack a very powerful ritual that has been used in her coven forever to bring back other dead witches, seeking a plan of revenge on the Mikaelsons. My next person is going to be Cole Mikaelson, and I know he's not a witch for very long, and we don't get to see him do a lot of witchy things, but the simple fact that he was a vampire for 1,000 years and still made it a point to study magic, knew magic more than a lot of other witches, and was able to teach witches about magic is pretty cool and pretty inspiring. I think that if he got to be a witch longer, he would have been one of the most fierce, lethal witches ever to exist. Not only did he study magic, he also taught witches how to create dark objects so he could use magic himself, and made a dagger that worked on Klaus. The next honorable mention that I'm going to mention is going to be Papa Tunde. He is able to come back from the dead with the help of Celeste Dubois, and is able to use a channeling spell on an original to get original strength. And ultimately he is obviously defeated, but it was a very cool concept that you could channel an original and have an ongoing source of channeling magic. And I do not know how he got the blade, but it was a bone of a pretty powerful witch and caused a lot of pain to a lot of powerful beings, including the originals and the upgraded originals. So the next honorable mention is going to be Vincent as Regent. He is wanted in exchange for Davina Claire. Before we even realize how powerful he is, he has a book that is able to help him defeat the Hollow. He doesn't even remember writing it, but is in his handwriting. He also is chosen to be the leader of all 9 covens, which is pretty powerful and pretty honorable all at the same time. Another honorable mention is the Strix Coven. They are responsible for creating a sire line spell that breaks Klaus from his sires, as well as the Travelers, who are capable of doing a pretty huge spell that blocks magic from an entire town, and also are able to travel through different bodies, being able to live longer. And last but not least is Dark Josie. She wins the merge against her twin sister. She forces it to be done early. She sets buildings on fire. She breaks free. She also is able to fight Hope. I wanted to put her in the list, but where I think that it was just dark magic that did this to her, and she didn't display these types of strengths, even though clearly they're within her, I couldn't put her on the list because she wasn't willing to cross the line. But like I said, she fights Hope, does all kinds of crazy things. She is in control of the necromancer at one point, and she's pretty badass. She also breaks out of a prison world after becoming Dark Josie again. And the number one most powerful witch is Inadu the Hollow. Although this is because of partly extremely poor writing and partly to make another show because they got spin happy. She is the only witch that is able to take out not one, but two of the Mikaelsons, technically. And while they did decide to do this on their own free will, she is the reason behind it. She, like Hope Mikaelson, is the only other baby that we see using magic other than the twins in the womb siphoning from Caroline's magic, but I think that's just them being them, not knowing what they're doing. She was aware of it like Hope. She is also a firstborn witch. Her parents were leaders of a Native American coven from two different covens, very similar to the unification ritual that both Haley and Jackson did. They were powerful people, making their coven more powerful. When the woman became pregnant, the leaders started to bless this pregnancy. This was in hope for prosperity to their village or coven. When she was born, she was stronger than anyone could have ever imagined. When we see her born, she is so powerful that she still wants more power. She has an insatiable thirst for power. Eventually, the parents decide that, in the whole entire village, decide that they need to take her down. She did one final spell, creating the Crescent Wolves, which leads me to wonder why that Hope and Haley were not witches, but whatever, and the rest of the Crescent Wolves. In death, her power only grew stronger. They ended up burning her after they captured her, and 4 of her bones were remaining, so while those bones stayed together, they got stronger in power, so they needed to separate them. And one of her bones is Papatunde's blade that we see causing insatiable pain to powerful beings like the originals. She takes on the form of so many different beings when she comes back. She is showing up in drawings. Her symbol is literally everywhere. Over years, they split up the magic into all 4 of the original vampires, other than Finn, who is no longer with us again. The Hollow gets her name from the emptiness that she had within her heart. She has so many powerful beings fighting against each other because she thrives on sacrifice. She also uses a totem to amplify her magic. She has psychic abilities. She's able to cause hallucinations. She resurrects others. She is able to resurrect Davina, and I really like this because Hope is the one to unlink Davina from the Hollow, just like Davina was able to unlink Hope and her mother from Sophie right in the nick of time. She allows others to see beings of those that they loved, kind of like Silas, but way more scarier. When she takes over your body, it is such a dark, cold, brutal thing. There's so much darkness, and Sophia says that to Klaus to help Hope. She kills Elijah Mikaelson, and he does come back after the pendant, but still. So she becomes Hope. She goes into Hope's body because she knows that the only person that can take her out will not kill her daughter, and I think that the only person that really can take her out is her daughter, so she's not going to kill herself. But we see when the Mikaelson siblings come within close proximity to each other, or Hope, weird things start to happen. Whispers. They want all of the magic wants to be back together, so it starts creating chaos around it. And then it all gets together, and it goes into Klaus, and the chaos stays internally in one being. Well, actually, Hope takes it back first. Then Klaus uses Hope's werewolf transformation to use the Saltzman's twins to siphon the magic out of Hope and put it into Klaus. Klaus then eliminates himself with the white oak. And I am so confused because where does that magic go? She has never been killed before, and we don't end up seeing her in Legacies, but I don't think that was the last of her, honestly, because she is pretty ruthless and pretty diabolical. And just her insatiable power lives on somewhere in those bones or something. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you guys think, if you guys agree or disagree. Hope to hear from you. See you next week.